What's going on, everybody? We have Shotgun Spratling here. It covers USC for USC football and the 24/7 Sports Network. Reason why I wanted to bring you on, because there's a lot of connections with Miami and USC right now. So there's a lot to get to with that. But just how's it going, Shotgun, here?
It's a little bit crazy time of the year. I just made a cross country trip to move in with some family in New Jersey. So still covering USC though from afar. So it's been kind of hectic. But hey, that's what December's about, right?
Yeah, and it gives us a chance to talk some football even this time of year. A lot's going on with both of these programs. Recently, Miami picked up a commit, a transfer from USC, Jake Lichtenstein, from Cypress Bay here in South Florida, but just, he'd been at USC for 5 years. Your perception on Jake and maybe the type of player he is, particularly last season as he stepped into that starting role.
Yeah, Jake's one of my favorite guys on the team. I talked with him a good amount. A guy that 3 years ago had pushed his way into the rotation as a second-year guy, had worked his way at the end of the season. He was getting 30 to 40 snaps a game on the defensive line, which is obviously a huge number. And then injuries took over. He had what he thought was a calf injury, ended up being a little bit more serious than that. Cost him the 2019 season. 2020, he opts out of the season initially, and then decides to opt back in a little bit later in the season. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to get back in shape, football shape in time the last couple of weeks, so he didn't get any playing time. So he had missed 2 years completely before this season. So there's a lot of question marks and unknowns, and especially with USC's defensive line, they needed somebody to step up because they had gotten Brendan Peely, their senior nose tackle, had an Achilles injury in the spring camp. They bring in a transfer from Alabama, Ishmael Sopsher. He has double compartment leg syndrome, has to have surgery on both his legs. He never really makes an impact this season, so they needed someone to step up. And Jake's not your typical nose tackle body, but he was playing inside a lot and playing that defensive tackle position really well for USC, holding the point of attack because of how strong he is rather than just his mass, and forcing teams to worry about him initially before getting to the linebacker and some other stuff. So I thought he really showed improvement as the season progressed as well. But just to see his journey going from getting that early opportunity to make an impact and making some plays back there, and making a couple of TFLs late in that season, 2018. And then 2 years of not being able to do anything to come back and to be a big-time contributor at a position really of need for USC. He was one of the unsung heroes for USC this season, I think.
Just maybe type of, I know he has a little bit of position flexibility inside or out. Maybe what kind of impact do you think he can have? Where do you think he plays best at? And he's got 2 years left of eligibility. He said that, and I know he's excited to be at Miami. So this is a player that, kind of comes in, provides depth at the very least, but just what kind of maybe impact moving forward, and like I said, just maybe where you think his best position is and where he's at his best.
Yeah, I think that because that positional versatility, it kind of depends on the rest of the roster, because you can move him inside, move him outside. He doesn't have necessarily that quick twitch first step that you want on a true edge guy that's going to come off screaming off the corner. But you can put him up, and you can put him head up with the tackle. You can move him inside. You can play him, in that 4-eye. You can move him around to different positions. You kind of move him anywhere on that defensive line, and so it gives you a lot of options with the rest of your pieces, because Jake's going to do his job. Now, is he going to be the guy that's going to get you 6, 8, 10 sacks from a defensive tackle position? No, but he's going to do his job and allow everyone else to do their job. So I think that he's one of those valuable cogs that you need. That may not be a star and may not be a guy that you notice every single game and say, wow, that guy's just making a ton of plays. But he does everything the right way. He holds the point of attack really well. He comes off blocks and makes some plays himself, but he also just allows other guys to be able to run free, because you're not necessarily able to double team him and get to the second level easily like you are with some interior guys that are a little bit smaller. I think despite his girth, he can play inside if you need him to, but I think he's ideally suited more like a 4-3 as a defensive tackle there rather than a true nose tackle position. So lining up over a guard, inside or outside shoulder, and being able to attack against a guard rather than trying to take on that center and getting that double team, I think is a little bit easier for him. But just kind of depends on what Mario tries to do with their defense there. But I think he's a very valuable piece, because you need those flexible guys that if someone else doesn't fit exactly into the position you want them to, well, if you can move guys around a little bit, I think that allows other guys to kind of open up and do a little bit more. So I think it's always valuable to have flexible guys. And I think he's a guy that makes everyone else around him a little bit better too because of what he can do.
One of the things Mario has been working on, and it's going to be, a process, is just that they've got a lot of young guys on the roster. So they're trying to get those older guys, those veteran guys to kind of mix in, not just that defensive line, but just across the team. You've had a chance to see Mario Cristobal there in the Pac-12, although, Mario only faced USC the one time there in 2020 with that Pac-12 championship. But I'm curious, as someone who's followed the Pac-12, I'm curious about maybe your perception of Coach Cristobal and kind of from afar, just kind of seeing him and what he's been able to do and kind of, leading Oregon to 3 Pac-12 championship games, winning 2 of them. Maybe your thoughts on him from afar. What do you see in him as a coach?
I mean, USC may have only played him one time in the Pac-12 championship. However, they've gone against him time and time again on the recruiting trail, and there was some good animosity in between those two staffs going back and forth. But between just the kind of rivalry that you look for, and it was on the recruiting trail for those guys. So then when they met in the Coliseum, it was a little extra special for Oregon. Cristobal actually took some time, walked around the stadium after the game and everything, kind of soaking it all in. So he's a good villain to have in a conference because he's going to recruit his ass off. He's going to be out there all the time. He's going to put that much more pressure on the Clemsons, the Florida States, the Floridas as well, to lock down the state of Florida. And he's going to be a guy that's going to take care of Florida first and then build out from there. And it was interesting because at Oregon, obviously you can't really do that as much. There's not that talent base in the state of Oregon, but he really mined Southern California really well, and that's where he was going head to head with USC. He's going to do it in the trenches. He understands that, being a former offensive lineman. He built up those offensive lines at Oregon. They were dynamic. Getting players like Penei Sewell, who he was like 19 years old and still just dominating guys that are 22 years old in front of him. So, he can identify offensive linemen really well, and, he knows how to build them up as well. So I think that's the biggest thing there. So if you have an offensive line, you always have a chance, because then you can run the ball a little bit, you can protect the quarterback enough, get a little bit of quarterback play. And speaking of that USC connection, Jake Garcia being a former USC commit at Miami. So obviously some good quarterback play coming out of Miami. So we'll see what they do there and how that battle shapes out for him as well. But if you can protect up front, I think it's huge for him. So I think he'll take care of the trenches, and they'll take care of the defensive line as well. He got Kayvon Thibodeau. He got some of those big boys in the middle, Jordan Scott and guys like that. He understands how to win in the trenches, and it can all start from there. Now, his skill position players, there was some issues there. Their wide receivers didn't catch the ball consistently enough. Their running backs were really good. Obviously, they ran the ball really well, and they had some dynamic guys there that were really hurt this year when C.J. Verdell went down. But I think the run game comes first to him. If he can find some playmakers that can catch the ball consistently and put, an offense coordinator is going to put those guys in position, then I think they can do a really good job. Their secondary was tremendous throughout his time at Oregon. So I think it starts in the trenches, and I think he'll win there. And then if he can find the playmakers on the outside, that can take them from being a contender to a conference contender to a playoff contender. And I think that was the one area where they were really missing. They needed that big time playmaker to go make a play to turn a game for them when they were struggling against Utah, and they're struggling against some of those in those games that they lost. They've shown what they can do going to Ohio State and winning. That was an amazing game right there. And that shows what he's able to build right there. He instills that confidence in his players. I talked to some of the Oregon players in the past, and they definitely think that they are the cream of the crop of the Pac-12, even if they were on the rise and hadn't really gotten there yet. And then now, obviously, they've done that the last couple of years.
It's interesting that you mentioned in the trenches, and everyone knows Mario with his ties to the offensive line. The more people I talk to, they always remind it's not just the offensive line. The defensive line is important to him as well, and I think that should excite Miami. I think it is showing in the recruiting already. And just he has spoke about the importance of having that strong front seven. He spoke about it on signing day. Is there one or two recruiting battles? You touched on recruiting battles. Was there one or two guys that he went head to head with and won against USC that stand out to you over his time at Oregon? Is there a couple of those guys where like either it looked like they were going to go to USC or they were in USC's backyard, whatever it might be? Is there a couple guys that stands out to you that Cristobal was able to land? Because look, he's going to have to go again. You touched on it. He's going to have to go head to head against some of the tough teams in the SEC, whether it's Florida and Florida State, in-state. So he's going to have to win tough battles down here as well right now.
Yeah, Alabama is going to be coming into Florida and trying to mine the best talent as well. And, all those programs that are in the South, they see Florida as an area where they can go in and take some players away. And I think that's one thing that if Mario is on a roll, the players, especially in the Miami area, but in Florida in general, are going to want to stay home and play for him. So I think it's going to be a key there. But you look at their roster and you look at the Southern California players that they pulled from there. Kayvon Thibodeau is potentially going to be the number 1 pick. Penei Sewell, a top 5 pick. Now, he wasn't from Southern California, but that was USC's top offensive line target. Now, it helped, obviously, that USC has been – there's not really a better way to put it than trash the last couple of years. So the product on the field, he could sell that a lot more. But going against USC with Kayvon Thibodeau was a big one. Going against USC with Justin Flo, the top linebacker, the best linebacker I've ever seen in high school. Now, unfortunately for him, he's been banged up at Oregon and hasn't really been able to make an impact these last 2 years. But that was a guy that USC, if USC was rolling, he probably stays at home at USC, and there's no question about it. But they were able to come in, even though, the grandma wanted him to stay home, everything, all the family was USC fans growing up type of thing. He came in and pulled him out, and Justin Flo, I think, will be a big asset to Oregon going forward. But you have Noah Sewell. So if USC wins the battle with Penei Sewell, then maybe they get Noah Sewell as well. So there's been several instances where USC's gone head to head with them. There's been a couple players that have transferred from USC. Devin Williams being one, the wide receiver who just entered himself into the draft, and then Brian Addison was another one where USC thought that they had it kind of locked up. And then unfortunately for them, Oregon comes in and says, no, we got this. And Mario is able to take somebody away from USC's backyard. And I think that's the biggest thing for USC and Lincoln Riley going forward is locking down the backyard. Mario was able to come in and really upset that and pull out the top players. And that's one of the reasons why USC has struggled recently.
Let's stay with recruiting. Miami and USC going head-to-head right now with 4-star defensive end Cyrus Moss. For perspective, he's out of Las Vegas. He would, if he comes to Miami, he's a 63rd ranked player in the class. That's higher than the 2 commits that they or the 2 signings they have right now, Nigel E. Kelly and Jaleel Skinner. So that certainly would be a big boost. And Miami and USC are going head-to-head. Other schools in there as well: Alabama, Arizona State, Oregon, just to name a few. So he has delayed his signing. He was originally going to sign and then kind of just not tell people where he signed, just kind of make that formal announcement at the All-American Bowl in January. Where do you think things stand with Cyrus as USC, again, is trying to make that push for him as well?
It's an interesting thing with Cyrus Moss is because USC wasn't in the mix at all. And then obviously Lincoln Riley gets hired and they put the press on. They did get a commitment from Zion Branch. Zachariah Branch, his younger brother, is going to announce on Christmas Eve. Those are both teammates at Bishop Gorman. So USC is trying to build that pipeline back. So I think that they've really done a good job of really establishing, hey, we want to get in with Bishop Gorman. We want to get back to where the top players come to USC. But obviously he was committed to Oregon, looking at things, and I think that Mario is a big part of that. So that's why Miami suddenly comes in the mix. This is a tough one to tell. Now Blair Angulo is, covers the mountain region like no other, and he put in a crystal ball for USC a couple days ago. However, his confidence level was 3, which tells you that that's where he's guessing he's going to go. He doesn't have really the intel on it. So I think it's a fascinating one because there's so few true surprises anymore in recruiting. You usually find out the night before or something like that. So I think the All-American Bowl is going to be really interesting because there's 3 or 4 guys that are going to be announcing that we don't necessarily have a full lockdown on where they're going to be going. And Cyrus Moss is one of those. And I think he's a disruptor. I've seen him playing a 7-on-7 a lot of, playing middle linebacker, playing outside linebacker, so you can move him around a little bit. He has enough mobility that you can put him in coverage if you want to, but it's coming off the edge where he's going to make an impact. And those are the type of players that can make an immediate impact because you can just give him one job. Hey, it's 3rd and long. We're going to put you in the pass rush situation, and you're just going to go get the quarterback. That's it. And you don't have to tell them to do everything else and, figure out everything. So some of those guys can make a quick, immediate impact. So he's a guy that may be able to do that just coming off the edge and being a 3rd down rusher as he learns and grows into the position that whatever school ends up getting him really wants him to play.
So Mario is clearly, it's been said, Cyrus said, just the amount of work and recruiting effort that Mario put into it when he was at Oregon. He was one of those top guys that that really made a point of emphasis. He definitely felt the love in the recruiting. I'm curious with USC, can you get a sense on how big of a target that he is for them? How much do they want him? And Mario said it in the press conference on signing day that, again, they signed Nigel Kelly, top 100 defensive end. And he did say, hey, look, we need to get another guy there. Obviously can't speak by name, but he just knows that it's not just about getting one guy. And I think, not even just one at the same position. You've got to continue to add as much talent as possible. And obviously at that position, so you can't key on a guy. But USC, Lincoln Riley, can you get a sense on maybe what kind of priority that Cyrus is for them?
I mean, I know that he is a guy that they're really going after hard. Granted, they've been really going after a lot of guys hard. I mean, they land, get picked up at 6 a.m. basically airport, come do press conferences, meet with the boosters, all that type of stuff, and they're in home that night with Raleek Brown, and they flip him from Oklahoma. But I think 2 days later is when they went to Vegas to visit the Bishop Gorman guys as well as the Desert Pine guys. So they really have put that effort in. Alex Grinch did an in-home visit with him as well. So they're really putting that effort and made him one of the top priority guys, because Lincoln Riley said during his press conference is that they didn't want to come in and offer a bunch of guys that they didn't really have a relationship with. So obviously they had recruited him at Oklahoma, and so they made him a top priority of one of the guys that they wanted to try to get. Now USC was fortunate. I don't know if they necessarily talked guys into it, but there was a number of guys that decided to push their commitment back, which actually helps USC, with only 2 weeks. Same thing with Mario at Miami is any of those guys that push their commitment back, now you give them extra time to recruit you. And Mario, to touch on him, he doesn't have the title of recruiting coordinator, but he could, because he's going to be the guy that's reaching out. His phone he's always on his phone connecting with recruits himself. It's not just hey, I'll come in at the end and I'll do the in-home visit. I'll come in and try to close the deal. He is through the entire process, and that's what recruits really love, is that he's not he's not an ivory castle or anything. He's not the king up in the top. He's coming down and he's having that discussion. He's getting to know guys, and they build that relationship with him. So I think that's why Mario has done so well recruiting wise, is that he knows the personal relationships and how important those are, and he makes that a big deal. So I think that's why, even though he went to Miami and Cyrus Moss wasn't looking necessarily at Miami, it was like, oh, okay, now I need to look at Miami because I love Mario, and that's one of the reasons why I was going to Oregon initially. So I think that they're definitely in it. I think it's personally probably a USC and Miami battle, and how that'll come down, which is fun, because it's still Mario versus USC, and it just continues on a little bit in a different form now. So, but it's going to be really interesting, because I think both these programs are going to be on the rise, especially that both programs are investing. We've had conversations in the past with USC, and I know Miami's had a similar situation where it wasn't the ideal job, ideal location, ideal history, but was the administration going to invest in the program the way you need to be one of those top tier programs? And it sounds like both programs are doing that now, which is really awesome to see, and really fun, because I think college football is better when you have some more blue bloods that are really good, and Miami and USC being good makes it that much more fun.
So Miami and USC going head to head on the recruiting trail. Unfortunately, we have not seen these two teams face each other since a couple times in the 60s. And we did not get to see these teams face each other in the 2000s. That would have been a lot of fun. It just didn't overlap with those great teams both programs had. It's going to be interesting. I know, again, I know people in Miami are looking at USC and wondering what's going on out there. Not just with recruiting and seeing some head-to-head battles, but like you said, they're starting to overlap on some administrative type things, and the point of emphasis. And USC has had more recent success since that 2000 run than Miami. But again, both teams are not where they want to be as programs. How would you summarize how things are going at USC? Again, as Miami fans kind of look at it and kind of wondering how things are going over there, and maybe these two teams are on a path to collide at some point in the future. But yeah, how would you say things are going with Coach Riley and the program there?
So I came to LA 12 years ago, and this is the first time ever that USC fans are united and excited. Even when they went to the Rose Bowl, that dramatic game against Penn State, there were still some people going, that's all Sam Darnold. The program's not going to be anything once he's gone. And they were kind of correct. But, there's been so much ups and downs, the turmoil, top recruiting class and stuff with Lane Kiffin being preseason number one, and then not even finishing in top 25, finishing, I think, 7-6 that season, losing in the Sun Bowl, just an embarrassing season. You have Ed Orgeron, Steve Stark. Like, there's just been so much going on. And so for the first time, like, I cover basketball as well, and going to some of the basketball games, just everyone's excited about the football program, wants to talk about it, and, you know, looking forward. And it's really cool to see for the fans because, you know, I know that our message boards have been going crazy right now, but it's, you know, seeing some of the people that are coming back and saying, you know, I had to stop because it wasn't good for my health to be following this team. And, you know, I'm so excited about the future and where it can go. So I think that's similar with Miami. I think that this is a bright future for both programs. They're going in the right direction. And it starts with recruiting. You know, it's the coaches always say it's not the X's and O's, it's Jimmy's and Joe's. So, you know, it starts with the players and then you build from there. And I think that Mario and Lincoln Riley have already shown in the short amount of time that they've been at their new programs is that they're going to hit the trail hard and they're going to be going out and trying to steal as many recruits as they can from anybody else. They don't care who gets in the way. They're going to recruit the top guys and try to build from there. I thought Lincoln Riley made a very interesting point at his press conference. Now, USC only signed 6 players, I believe it was, and they have a transfer that's committed as well. But he said, hey, I can come up here and say and have 20 names. And he said, but we want to get the right pieces. And he said part of it is, you know, it's getting the right pieces, but it's also getting rid of the wrong pieces. So building the roster one piece at a time. So that's where USC is at right now. And it's going to be a little bit of a process. But with the transfer portal and the fact that I think both of those destinations, Miami and USC, both for the football and for outside of football, are great destinations for transfers. You know, if I'm playing at Iowa and I've been in the cold for 3 or 4 years, I want to be a grad transfer. You know what really looks nice? The sunny beaches of Miami or Los Angeles. So I think that they're great destinations. And if these two coaches can build things quicker with a transfer portal, but they got to make sure they make the right choices. And I think that's one of the things that both of them are really emphasizing.
And both programs has made success look very difficult over the years. I think we're going to look back and kind of wonder what the heck was going on. I know we've talked about it all the time about some of the struggles that Miami's had. And I've covered a lot of their games over the years. So Shotgun, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Happy holidays to you and yours. And we'll be in touch. Definitely stay locked in. For USC fans, definitely check out USC football, and Miami fans always stay locked in on Inside the U. So take care, man.
Thank you so much for having me. And hopefully we'll get one of those home and home matchups before too long here. Let's make that happen, USC in Miami.